I used to believe that grabbing the biggest handgun chambered in the most hard-hitting round meant I was fully prepared to defend myself. But one night changed that belief completely. A few years back, I enrolled in a high-intensity defensive shooting class, built specifically to mimic real-life scenarios under extreme stress. In my hand, a full-sized pistol chambered in .45 automatic Colt pistol, what many folks like to call the one-and-done solution. Sirens were blaring, strobe lights flashing, instructors yelling. I squeezed the trigger. My first shot whiffed entirely. The second soared over the berm. The recoil was just too much for me to stay on target. Right then, it hit me: survival isn't about brute force. It's about what you can shoot straight when your heart's pounding, your grip is slick, and every tick of the clock could cost a life. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what really makes self-defense ammunition effective. We're talking about why some lighter, faster rounds, often dismissed as underpowered, are actually chosen by professionals in federal law enforcement and elite military units. And most importantly, I'll show you how modern ammo design is flipping the old-school bigger is better mindset on its head. If you've ever been torn between a 9mm and a .45 automatic Colt pistol, or if you just want to understand what's actually going to keep your family safe, stick with me until the end. I'm no commando, no secret agent. I'm a regular American who takes personal safety seriously. And the day I tried a box of fluted hollow points at the range, my whole perspective on stopping power changed. Let's kick things off with one of the most hotly debated issues in the gun community. Does caliber size really make a difference? Let's start with the biggest myth in the firearms world: why bullet size isn't the deal breaker you think it is. I still remember my first visit to a gun shop down in Texas. I told the clerk I was in the market for a good home defense sidearm, and he didn't even hesitate, pointed right to a slick-looking .45 automatic Colt pistol. "You hit with that thing, they're going down," he said confidently. It sounded solid, even convincing. But there's a catch. That kind of thinking only tells half the story, and if you buy into it, it can lead you down the wrong path for years. After I got serious about training and testing, I started running all kinds of loads through gel blocks, hollow points, bonded rounds, fluted designs, you name it. What I found out shocked me. Caliber isn't what determines whether you walk away or not. Sure, it's easy to assume the bigger bullet is better, but bigger rounds like the .44 Magnum or even the .45 automatic Colt pistol can be brutal to manage, especially when you're under duress and not used to high recoil. I once sat down with a retired cop friend of mine who told me about a night that changed his entire view on defensive ammo. Back then, he said, I swore by the .45. But during a break in response, I watched another officer dump 3 rounds into a suspect. Only one made contact, and even then, it didn't stop the guy right away. It was a hard-earned lesson. Bottom line, the best bullet is not necessarily the largest, it's the one you can control when chaos hits. Under adrenaline, what matters is not the thump, but the shot you can place where it counts. That's why the Federal Bureau of Investigation spent years developing new standards for duty ammo. It's not about bullet weight or sound anymore. It's about how deep the projectile can go. Which brings up the next big question. Why is a 12-inch minimum the new gospel in the gun world? To answer that, we've got to go back to a firefight that changed everything. Now let's talk about the shootout that rewrote the rules. The Miami firefight of 1986. Every now and then, there's a moment that alters everything we thought we knew, and for self-defense ammo. That moment was April 11th, 1986. Early that morning, 8 FBI agents were tailing 2 armed and dangerous bank robbers, Platt and Maddox. What they didn't know was that within minutes, they'd be caught in one of the most violent and deadly gunfights in the Bureau's history. The entire exchange lasted under 5 minutes. More than 140 shots were exchanged. 2 agents were killed, several others were gravely injured. But the part that still haunts firearms experts? The suspects were hit several times and kept on fighting. One round in particular, a 9mm, hit Platt in the arm, passed through, and lodged near his heart. It was a textbook shot, but it didn't get deep enough to shut him down. Platt still had enough life left in him to keep shooting. He took 2 agents with him before finally being neutralized. That moment forced the FBI to ask a different set of questions. No longer was it, how big is the round? But rather, can this bullet reach the vitals even through clothing, bone, or glass? That day revealed a brutal truth. Defensive encounters are messy and unpredictable, and you may only get one shot that counts. So, the bullet doesn't have to be massive, it just needs to reach the right place, fast. This is why the Bureau established a clear rule. Any round meant for duty use must penetrate between 12 and 18 inches in calibrated gel that simulates a human torso. And that puts fans of so-called knockdown rounds on notice. If your bullet can't reach the heart, does all that muzzle flash even mean anything? But penetration on its own doesn't tell the full story. To truly stop a threat, the bullet must also expand and do internal damage where it counts. That's what brings us to the real formula for stopping power: depth plus expansion. And next, we'll dig into why those 12 to 18 inches became the gold standard and why many rounds still fall short of it. Now let's break down why that 12 to 18-inch window is the most trusted measure of real-world effectiveness in defensive shooting. Ever wondered why the minimum accepted depth for defensive ammo is 12 inches? It's not random. It wasn't picked out of thin air. This range was determined after thousands of ballistic events, countless lab tests, and far too many tragic incidents where ammo failed to perform. Think about this. You're being charged by an attacker wearing a thick jacket, maybe holding a crowbar. You pull the trigger. Your bullet first has to punch through multiple layers of clothing, possibly an arm raised in defense, then still reach vital organs like the heart or spine. If that round stops at 10 inches, the threat is still on his feet. That's why the experts set the bar where they did. Defensive loads must travel at least 12 inches, but no more than 18, through ballistic gel that simulates soft tissue. To be trusted. Any less and the round may fail. Any more, and you risk hitting an unintended target beyond the threat. I remember watching a side-by-side test. Two nearly identical pistols, firing two completely different types of ammunition. One round, a budget option, struggled to reach 10 inches after piercing synthetic denim in gel. The other, a premium hollow point, cruised through 15 inches, with picture-perfect expansion. The takeaway was obvious. Both bullets struck the target, but only one could be counted on to do real damage. Lesson learned: just landing a hit isn't good enough. Your ammo has to go the distance and do its job once it gets there. That 12 to 18-inch sweet spot isn't just a number on a spec sheet. It's what separates wishful thinking from a true defensive solution. And when the chips are down, that difference might be what saves your life or someone else's. 4. Full metal jacket or hollow point. One choice might cost a life. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I strolled past a basic handgun course. With a buddy of mine, he's a seasoned firearms trainer. As we walked by, a man in his 50s stood proudly in the group, holding a pistol and grinning. "I picked up some high-end rounds for home defense, full metal jacket," he declared. My friend simply sighed and muttered, "That stuff's for the range, not your living room." Here's the core of the issue. Full metal jacket rounds are constructed with a solid lead core, completely encased in a hard metal shell. They're built to penetrate cleanly, often traveling straight through without much deformation, great for training, but not ideal when lives are on the line. Hollow points, on the other hand, are engineered with an open cavity at the tip. Upon impact, they expand like an umbrella, increasing the surface area, slowing down inside soft tissue, and delivering more stopping power without overpenetration. Now picture this. You're forced to shoot to protect yourself. Your full metal jacket round hits the attacker but doesn't stop. It exits the target and finds a second victim, a stranger, or possibly your own loved one behind a thin wall. Sounds dramatic? It has already happened. In one real-world case from 2009, a Georgia shop owner fired a full metal jacket round during a robbery. The bullet pierced the threat and continued right through a drywall partition, striking a bystander and inflicting serious injuries. Had he been using hollow points, the bullet might have stayed inside the attacker, and that innocent woman could have walked away unharmed. Key takeaway: you're not just responsible for where your bullet lands. You're accountable for everything that happens after the trigger breaks. Full metal jacket isn't unsafe. It's just not purpose-built for self-defense. Hollow points are. They're specifically designed to end the threat quickly while reducing the risk of unintended harm. However, not all hollow points are created equal. Budget options can fail to expand reliably, and thick clothing can sometimes block the cavity, turning a high-tech round into little more than a metal plug. That's why picking the right ammunition isn't just about choosing hollow point. It's about selecting one that's been battle-tested under real-world conditions. And that brings us to what changed the game. 5. 9mm takeover. Why bigger doesn't always mean better. When I first got serious about shooting, I was convinced. Real stopping power came from big, heavy rounds. I started off with a .45 automatic Colt pistol, because that's what all the old-school experts on gun forums swore by. But after a few hundred rounds of training, my wrists started to feel it. My follow-ups were slow, and my confidence began to dip. That's when I noticed something. Professionals who stake their lives on their sidearms, military personnel, law enforcement agents, even the Federal Bureau of Investigation, were all switching to 9mm. So why the shift away from calibers like .40 Smith & Wesson or .45 automatic Colt pistol? It wasn't about cutting costs or going soft. It was about performance. With today's ammunition tech, 9mm delivers terminal effects equal to or better than larger calibers, while being far more controllable. Let's talk advantages. Reduced kickback. Easier to keep rounds on target under pressure. Higher round count. More shots in the mag means greater staying power. Affordable practice. Less expensive cartridges encourage more range time. Modern bullet design. Rounds like Speer Gold, Dot, and Federal HST give 9mm the ability to penetrate deeply and expand reliably, just like the big boys. Real-world evidence backs it up. In 2014, after exhaustive testing, the Federal Bureau of Investigation restructured its official ballistics standard. 9mm emerged not only as a viable alternative, but as the top performer in simulated shootouts, particularly in scenarios involving rapid, high-stress engagements. Many officers who once clung to .40 Smith & Wesson found that they shot faster and more accurately with 9mm. Bottom line, you're not proving anything by picking a bigger round. The point of defensive shooting is precision under pressure. Can you hit your mark again and again when it matters most? 9mm isn't a compromise. It's the optimal tool for the job, backed by data, experience, and modern engineering. And the innovation doesn't stop there. Let's look at the next evolution in defensive ammo, something that throws conventional wisdom right out the window. 6. The next generation. How fluted bullets rewrote the rules. I'll never forget the first time I laid eyes on a fluted projectile. It didn't look like any self-defense round I had ever seen. No hollow cavity. No typical full metal jacket profile. Just a solid piece of copper, precisely milled with deep spiral grooves wrapping around its nose. I remember asking, "This is supposed to stop a threat?" Turns out, it absolutely is. Unlike conventional hollow points that rely on mechanical expansion to increase their effectiveness, fluted bullets work differently. These rounds use high-speed fluid dynamics. The moment the bullet hits soft tissue, the spiral channels act like little turbines, directing fluid violently outward, shredding a wide, deep temporary cavity, without the bullet ever changing shape. Here's what sets them apart. No expansion needed. No risk of failure due to clogged cavities. Shape retention. Maintains full structure even after hitting barriers. Wound volume. Can produce channels more devastating than some hollow points. A standout example comes from Lehigh Defense, makers of the Xtreme defense line. In testing through ballistic gel with 4 layers of denim, their fluted bullets penetrated between 13 and 15 inches, maintained perfect structural integrity, and produced explosive wound cavities. And get this, even in smaller calibers, like .32 automatic Colt pistol, often scoffed at for lacking punch, these fluted rounds reached ideal depth and caused massive internal trauma. So what does that mean for the everyday carrier? It means compact, low-recoil pistols that were once viewed as last resort can now become legitimate defensive platforms, if paired with the right ammunition. Moral of the story: don't choose rounds based on what your uncle or internet forum told you in 2005. Let science, testing, and real-world data guide your choices. But no matter how advanced your ammunition is, it's all useless without accurate shot placement. In the next section, we'll explore why hitting the right spot, not just the right caliber, is what truly determines whether you survive the fight. See you in Part 7. 7. Shot placement wins. Caliber is secondary. I once heard an old vet say something that didn't make sense to me at first. A .22 to the chest beats a .45 to the bicep. I laughed at the time, thinking he was just being sarcastic. But after speaking with cops, seasoned instructors, even emergency room surgeons, I learned he wasn't kidding. You could carry the most advanced firearm, loaded with cutting-edge hollow points, but if your shot misses a vital organ, it's just loud noise. So, what exactly is shot placement? It's the precision to put rounds into areas that stop a threat immediately, like the central nervous system, heart, lungs, or spine. These are the critical zones that shut the body down on impact. It doesn't matter how tough or determined an attacker is. If you hit one of these spots, they go down. Here's a real-world takeaway. The FBI studied thousands of officer-involved shootings and concluded that there's virtually no major difference in immediate threat, stopping between common handgun calibers, 38 Special, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, or 45 ACP, as long as the shot hits where it needs to. I once saw training footage where an officer hit a suspect 3 times in the shoulder and arm. The attacker kept advancing. The 4th shot, placed center chest, ended the threat instantly. It wasn't a caliber failure. It was a placement issue. Lesson: it's not just about what you're packing. It's about where your rounds land. When your adrenaline surges, your vision narrows, and your hands are shaking, you'll wish for a gun you can control, ammunition you know well, and the muscle memory to deliver shots that matter. That's why lower recoil rounds like 9mm are so popular, because they allow for quicker, more accurate follow-ups when the pressure's on. But there's another piece to this puzzle, something most people don't consider until it's too late. Can you handle your gun when panic sets in? 8. Can you manage the recoil when it counts? I'll never forget the first time I fired a .357 Magnum. Before that, I had only used 9mm, so I was excited until I pulled the trigger. The recoil snapped my grip. The report echoed like a cannon, and I blinked from the muzzle flash. I stood there stunned. My instructor just nodded and asked, "Could you have fired a second shot if that had been a real threat?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That day I realized something important. The best ammo isn't the most powerful, it's the one you can control, especially when things go sideways. Under real stress, your body doesn't cooperate. Your pulse skyrockets. Your hands get clammy. You may get tunnel vision or even forget to breathe. That perfect stance from the range? Gone. Now you're just trying to survive. I had a student once, a single mother, who carried a .40 Smith & Wesson because someone told her it was serious self-defense firepower. But in a simulated pressure scenario with flashing lights, yelling, and loud distractions, she missed all her first shots. The recoil was too much and she panicked. She later swapped it for a compact 9mm. Next drill? 3 hits in 3 seconds. Lesson: don't let recoil beat you. If you can't grip the gun tight, keep your sights aligned and send a follow-up round in under 2 seconds. It doesn't matter how big your bullet is. Choosing something manageable doesn't make you soft, it makes you deadly accurate under fire. Once you've found ammo that matches your control and comfort, there's one more thing to think about: how your ammo choice could play out in court. 9. Courtroom consequences. The ammo that could haunt you. At a local seminar on self-defense law, the instructor, a retired cop turned defense attorney, stopped mid-lesson and looked around the room. "Everyone loves to talk ballistics," he said, "but your ammo choice might be what a prosecutor uses to hang you." He was right. Even if your defensive shooting is entirely justified, the type of ammunition you used can be turned against you in a courtroom, especially if the incident results in collateral damage, or if the opposing lawyer wants to portray you as trigger-happy. Some types to be wary of. Over-penetrating rounds like Full Metal Jacket can punch through your target and hit someone else. Gimmick ammo with aggressive names, think Zombie Slayer, RIP, or anything advertised with violent language can look bad to a jury. Unconventional or exotic rounds, not commonly carried by law enforcement, might invite unwanted scrutiny. Case in point, a man in Arizona defended himself using specialty fragmenting rounds, marketed as organ shredders. While the self-defense claim held up, the trial dragged on because the prosecutor used the ammo's branding to question the shooter's motives. Lesson: you're not just preparing to survive the threat, you're preparing to survive everything that follows. Stick to reputable duty, proven loads like Federal HST, Speer Gold Dot, or Winchester Ranger T. These rounds perform well, are trusted by law enforcement, and carry less courtroom baggage. Quick tips. Know your local laws and how they apply to your use of force decisions. Avoid tactical marketing fluff, choose proven, professional-grade ammo. Keep a record of why you chose your carry ammo. It might help your legal team later. Now, even with the most reliable ammo in your gun, there's still one factor that matters more than anything else: your training. 10. Training beats gear, always. At a range class one weekend, I watched a group run through defensive drills. One guy stood out, a confident man in his 50s, with a sleek 9mm and top-tier defensive rounds. "This is the best ammo you can carry," he said, holding up a box of Speer Gold Dot. Everyone nodded. Then the shooting started. Out of 3 rounds, he hit the target once. The instructor gave a slight smile and said, "Even the best ammo can't shoot itself." That line stuck with me. Lesson: high-end gear without real practice creates a dangerous illusion of preparedness. It's not about what you buy, it's about what you do. Shooting under pressure can't be learned in a classroom. It comes from live reps under simulated stress. Reloads, malfunctions, and drawing from concealment are all skills that need regular, consistent training. Real-world defense situations move fast. If you don't train, you won't keep up. A police officer once told me, "My ammo was solid, but 10 years of weekly drills is what let me stop that robbery when the guy was 7 feet away." Final takeaway: the round that wins the fight isn't the loudest or the fastest. It's the one you can deliver with precision when your life depends on it. If this video gave you something to think about, let us know in the comments. What defensive ammo do you trust, and why? Hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's next. We've got more content coming on defensive drills, real-world scenarios, and how to stay sharp when it matters most. Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only. It does not endorse or instruct any illegal firearm use, sales, or modifications.